Do I say something about myself?
You do, and then I'll say something.
So, name is Jacques Kruger. I've been working for Sasol for way too many years, but I've enjoyed it, and the career has been very fulfilling. I'm an industrial psychologist in terms of background. I think this is the third time that I'm at one of the Rising Star Breakaway sessions, so it's always a privilege to be talking to people with loads of enthusiasm and ideas and potential. So looking forward to being with you for this hour. Thanks.
And I, of course, I'm Selo Govender. I'm the head of learning and talent or people development at Sasol. I'm one of the, they call it greybeards earlier on in the, I'm working for 21 years, 15 of which have been with Sasol. So I'm very proud of the company that I work with. There's a little saying there that we have individually, we are one drop, and together we are an ocean. And I think in the spirit of today's session that we're having with you, that is in itself the beauty of collaboration and inclusion, and how you can harness that to its full potential and obviously get the best out of people. And today we're going to spend some time with you just to share with you how we're actually utilizing this to its full potential at Sasol. The other thing that I think quite interesting to share with you, because I'm sure many of you have that question if you've been keeping up to date with the news and the market and the economy. Sasol went through a huge transformation 3 years ago. You would have heard that. You're keeping abreast of the news. It's called Project Phoenix. And Project Phoenix was actually needed by our organization. It helped us to relook at the ways of work and the behaviors in our environment, and specifically in the People and Organizational Effectiveness Center of Expertise. We had an opportunity, it actually provided us an opportunity to relook and review all the things that we're doing in terms of what and how, and to make sure that we actually enable the organization with fit-for-purpose HR solutions. So I'm sure you've heard these buzzwords in your environment as well, but being fit for purpose and making sure that you ensure that your business has the right solution so that it can effectively deliver on the strategy, because it's about the business strategy that at the end of the day is going to ensure that you achieve the targets for your bottom line. Project Phoenix actually gave us that opportunity to review what we're doing. So for us, I see it as an opportunity, although you might have heard otherwise from your colleagues. But I think for Jacques and I, it actually has been a blessing. So that is something from a context perspective. And all I can say is that with that in mind, we are still on a journey. And we're still on this journey towards enabling a high-performance culture within Sasol. As I'm sure you know, no individual, no team, no organization is perfect. And it's through those, you can call it the differences and obviously the opportunities that you find that you can actually grow and develop. And I think that's critical. It's important to always be striving to continuously improve. And hence, that's why we say these are opportunities. So today we're going to hopefully host an engaging, fun session. And Jacques going to take you through something just now, and a little exercise to get the blood flowing and moving. And obviously, like I said already, to share with you how we have incorporated teamwork and collaboration and inclusion in all our people and org effectiveness practices. So all the talent, leadership development, organizational effectiveness, change, how we've incorporated that. It's what I call a way of work. So we're very excited to share that with you. And then obviously I've shared already that we're on this journey towards enabling a fully high-performing, values-driven organization. And we have 31,000 people across our organization. We, in our team, look after the minimum standards, what gets done. And then we've got teams globally. They are regional people and org effectiveness teams, North America, Eurasia, and Southern Africa. They go forth and they execute. So whatever we do is exciting. We design, we co-create, and we look at what's the best fit solutions for the organization. But it's all in the how it gets implemented. A good strategy, I'm sure you know this, is only as good good as it is implemented or executed. And I think that's key. So we're going to also share with you how we've used teamwork and collaboration and obviously diversity and inclusion to our benefit in terms of our employee value proposition and our employer brand. Sorry for walking around, that's just my style of facilitating. Thank you, Jacques. So I'm going to hand over to Jacques, who's going to do this exciting exercise and get our blood flowing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sasol. Just to get us warmed up to the topic. Morné, say if this thing's working. Maybe I should just switch it on. There we go. It works.
So I'm just going to take this out.
So to get the blood flowing, Sasol brings the stability. I bring the chaos. That's just how the working relationship goes. So what I want you to do, we're going to just get into an exercise to explore this concept a little bit further. And this is how we bring some energy and enthusiasm to this process. First instruction, we're going to break into 4 subgroups. Let me just think. Yeah, four subgroups. So there's about 20 people, 19 people in the room. And so let's take the 4 corners of the room. And I want you to self-organize into 4 groups of 4 or 5 people in that group. Try to do it with people that you didn't come here with, people that you don't know so well. If you don't know anyone well, then that's great. Self-organize in no less than 30 seconds into this corner over here, the corner at the back over there, just to this side of that sound table, and over here, into 4 groups.
We can be fast.
Right, so so listen everyone. That was really good. I want to ask you to please arrange a way for you to sit with a little bit of space in between you. So it might require, try to find an open space, or just try to do it somewhere where it makes sense. But arrange for you to sit in a circle with a little bit of open space between you. And what one team has done here is to put a chair in as a sort of a table. That can also work. Right, so I'm going to give this to you. Like that. So just join. Can I ask you guys to join the group over there? Join the group over there. Someone join the group over there. Someone join the group over there. That's perfect. Yay! Right, so what I want to ask you to do now quickly is distribute the stuff that you've got with you. Distribute that evenly among the members in the group. It might be that someone gets 3, it might be that someone gets 4, but please distribute that almost like you deal out a deck of cards at a poker game. Just do that quickly, make sure everyone has got a couple of pieces. Right, now before you do anything else, everyone just sit with your pieces. Before you do anything else, come on, everyone just... a little ego here, eh? We've got the overachievers over here. Just sit with your cards for a moment. Okay, I want you to carefully listen. Carefully listen to the following. So we've got 4 subgroups. I said 5, but 4 subgroups is good because of the group sizes. 4 subgroups. The puzzle pieces are distributed amongst the members of the group. There's a winner's prize if the group builds the most squares in an allocated time. I'm going to give you 4 minutes and I want you to build squares. So this works like a puzzle, and at the end it builds a square like this. Your time starts now.
Okay, within one level, how many squares do you have in one?
You can build individual squares with this. The subgroups have got more than one square.
Actually, what this one was? Wait.
Listen, no questions.
Oh, okay, sorry. And we all over the place.
That should have been part of the brief, I think. That should have told us. You want us to stand at the
Do you want us to? We'll try after school. Sorry, I got, what do you call it?
compulsive.
OCD, I have to move. Yeah.
There's 1 minute left. Just pause for me quickly. Everyone look up. And so we've got about, let's just do a quick check. How many squares over here? 1 over there. 4 still. 5 over here. 2. So it's 9. It's 9 plus 2 is 11 so far. Listen, folks, you should head closer to 15 squares with everything that was distributed, and you're only at 11. So what could be what could be wrong in the setup? Whose pieces is it?
I don't know. Let's see. I think can we join?
Okay. I'm gonna give you 3 more minutes. See how many extra squares you can build.
So that's good. These are solid. We need to exchange these.
So we need to get something from something.
10:15 is tea. 10:15 and then 10:35 back to rice.
So this is the biggest challenge.
Do you want to go and try it? We keep that one, we swap one, we small one.
Let's stick to where we are.
Yeah, I think that's the. You've got two full ones there. But the other ones are mismatched.
What we need is
You have a big time. Is that wrong? It's still fit there.
Guys, we still need this one, right? We still need this one. Right. Do you have one of those for us? No.
Yeah, the small one. She went to get two.
Okay, folks, I'm going to give you 15 more seconds to round that off. See if we can pull up another square or two. Yes.
We have one for you.
Just give me that small piece over there. Just give me that piece. Oh no, it's too big.
So did we give you one?
No.
We gave you nothing.
Yeah, so you need to
we're
tell
on
us
loan.
what you have.
Yeah, we're on loan. There's one for you. But you
No,
don't
it's
think
not
you can use it yet?
Okay, everyone, let's move back to your groups quickly.
Okay. We've got 2 spares.
Okay, don't break up the squares, eh? Don't break up the squares. Okay, everyone heads up. Let's get this to a conclusion. Let's tally the amount of squares quickly. 2 still? 4 still? 5? 4. And you had?
2.
Right. And so somehow you've managed to get all the missing pieces and add 2 squares.
I think we've helped them with one of these. So
Yeah.
it might be one to share.
Okay. So that's 4, that's 4, that's 5, that's 8. That's 13 plus, was it 2 at the back there?
5.
5. So that was 5 with 2 over here. So it's 5, 4, 4 plus 2. That gives us 8, 13, 15 squares. Okay, well done. And how many loose pieces have you got?
2, yeah. But
2 loose
I think
pieces.
they will go with
Couple
it.
loose pieces over there, 3 loose pieces. Okay. Okay, folks. Let's quickly tell the story of what just happened. Tell me how this illustrates something about teamwork and collaboration by thinking about what happened. What's the story of what happened here?
Bit of chaos.
Okay. I said I'm chaos.
Then
She
there's a
brings
bit of
order.
clarity, and then you see there's some stuff that just don't fit.
Okay, so chaos, clarity, and then you sit with things that don't fit, and then you start asking questions.
Yeah.
And so what is interesting about those pieces that don't fit, what was the assumption?
Well, we first thought they're supposed to fit.
Right, but let's stop there. They're supposed to fit. There's pieces here that's supposed to fit. That's an interesting assumption. Because I wonder how often in the workplace, if we see a piece, whether we just assume it doesn't fit, throw it away, versus it's supposed to fit. Let's think about where that contribution belongs. Okay, what else happened? Yes, at the back.
I think the fastness of collaboration can have a positive and a negative.
Yes.
Because we were very quick to have 5. Then we were left with pieces and they had nothing we wanted to, they could trade. We couldn't give them something that, you understand what I'm saying? The negative of it is, if you do it so fast, it has a negative effect on the other teams in the greater organization. So in other words, if you perform very well, very quickly, you either have to then mentor the other groups that are not doing it, or you simply stand out as the benchmark. Hey, we are the benchmark.
Yes.
Well, we can't. So initially we all tried to make a little square on our own with our own pieces, but it was impossible.
Yes.
The sooner we all started sharing pieces,
That's it.
the quicker we were able to make squares.
In that group.
Yes.
In this group.
Yes.
How was that mirrored in the larger system that's represented in the room? So who was the winner? Okay, good. I see you own it. You were there first. You're the winner. And so let's just think about that. Who's the group? Right? And so what was the instruction? See how many squares the group can build. And so where's the subgroups?
It's not there.
And so what was
You
this?
said 15 squares, so we actually made 15 squares.
There we go.
As a collective.
15
But we
squares.
wouldn't have done that.
15
We
squares
kept
in
all
total.
the little loose pieces here and tried to still push them
Exactly.
into each other.
So the assumption there was that we operate in silos. And why was that assumption there? Because I tricked you. Because I broke you into smaller groups. Because my instruction wasn't clear. Because I didn't allow for questions. Because I didn't encourage you to go beyond the silos. But I mean, there were individuals that clicked. Listen, there's contributions here that don't fit in our group. Let's think about how that can be applied elsewhere within the organization. And so the benchmark here is 60. And so you're not all the way up there. The benchmark is 16. I think there's enough pieces for 18 squares, but we haven't had a group build more than 60. And you're very close. Now let me take you a little bit further. When I say 16, it's not completely accurate. Because just think about that. How can 16 squares be more than 60? You also hinted towards the solution. I just know it because I stood close and I heard what he was saying. Maybe other people also had that.
Put them all together, it was squares. And they're even.
Right, so
Yeah,
2 by 2
square.
gives a square. 3 by 3
Nice.
gives a square. So now you have 2 by 2, 2 by 2, which takes 8. 3 by 3 makes 9. You've got 4 by 4. So you've got 4 additional squares. So you could take this all the way up to 20. But you were at 15, which isn't bad. Now, let me just think about that. You know that saying that we had in our abstract that says 1 + 1 = 3. Some people say it equals 11. In this example, 15 individual squares or 16 individual squares just isn't 16. And so the moment we think about bringing that together, we can get an emergent outcome. What happens is that if I sit with only 2, I have 2 squares. If you bring 2 squares, we've got 4. Stop. We've got 5. And so when we think about teamwork and collaboration, it is that differential of performance that comes in that couldn't have come in if it was just about tallying individual contributions. It's a performance differential that comes in because there's synergy. And that synergy between pieces actually transforms the outcome so that we don't recognize the arithmetic. Doesn't make sense. How did you get that done? We don't know. It just worked out. It just happened. There was magic in the group. And so when we talk about allowing for teamwork and collaboration and building that on a foundation of inclusion, we wanted you to have this practical experience. Now, let me take it a few steps forward because Selo is going to take us into talking about how we try to enable those conditions in Sasol. So I'm very briefly going to ask you a couple of questions, and I won't tally long on this because we're limited for time. Very quickly, what is your understanding of teamwork versus collaboration? Who wants to give that a shot? Teamwork versus collaboration. Is there a difference? Is it the same? Yes, sir.
I think there is a difference. With teamwork, I think you have a set target, you have a set goal, you're working towards achieving that goal. Whereas with collaboration, you might have a group working on a different goal, but when these two groups actually merge or collaborate, you actually produce different or better products because they are working in something else and you're working in something else.
Exponential.
Okay, so in this metaphor, maybe we had small teams. And so team works if there's a formal joining of people, and people have a formal role, and sometimes, often in teams, there's also a formal leader, and the output is expected to be teamwork. Now, here's the thing about that a lot of people are saying about collaboration. Let me just try and move on with the clicker. The clicker seems like I've lost focus here. Okay, let's just move on to that for a moment. It starts off with what people call cooperation. And so cooperation is simply that I share my knowledge to help you achieve your individual goal. I share my bit to help you, you share your bit to help me. But it's still individualized goals. Teamwork, there's a formal joining of people, there's a common goal, there's often leader dependence, there's predefined teamwork that is expected to reach that objective. And so when you move towards collaboration, what a lot of the theorists around this mean is that it's the informal coming together. It's the across boundaries that happens in the organization. Collaboration, interestingly, can't be forced. It's something that happens discretionarily. Teamwork, and it's teamwork taken to a higher level, and it's often not dependent on leaders. What leaders do need to do, though, is to create conditions conducive to collaboration. And how does inclusion fit in? What is your understanding of inclusion? You would have seen in our abstract we spoke about inclusion. Have you heard about this concept, inclusion, diversity and inclusion? When we move from diversity to inclusion, what do we mean? Who wants to give that a quick shot? Now the session is no longer collaborative. The session has become expert dependent. And that's okay. Give it a shot.
Okay, so inclusion is basically where you include people in the process or in the journey of either decision making or a change process, as opposed to coming to people and just telling them what has to be done or what was done. You include them in the journey and in the process of getting there.
So inclusion and involvement in that definition comes very closely together, and they are quite similar. Diversity, and let me just show you. Diversity is simply our difference. Whether you are, I'm white, you're black, I'm male, you're female, whether you're Xhosa, I'm Afrikaans, what province you grew up in, are you German, are you South African, are you Italian, are you young, are you old, are you on the brink of retirement, or did you just start off your career? These are things that makes us different. Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you single? Do you have kids? These things makes us tremendously different. Now that's simply diversity. And it matters that we appreciate those differences. That matters. But what really matters is the contribution you make because of that difference. Now for us to get that contribution, it means we start including your contribution. So inclusion is that condition where diversity is appreciated and we harness it towards contribution. And so that is what inclusion is. So if you want to work as an organization on teamwork and collaboration, our view is that you have to establish a culture of inclusion. You have to count on the pieces to matter. Right? There was a piece missing, there's a piece, let's throw it away. No. That piece belongs somewhere. Inclusion. And we also threw this word around in our abstract because when we think about what we just discussed, in our South African heritage, we think that it comes close to this very rich word, Ubuntu. That is a philosophical standpoint that talks about a person is a person through others. When Nelson Mandela was asked to define this, he told a few stories. You can look it up on Wikipedia. And in that little video, it threw out a bunch of characteristics. So how do you establish a culture of inclusion based on this idea of Ubuntu? And how does that enable collaboration? In our thinking, it needs stuff like this: respect, helpfulness, sharing, community, caring, trust, and unselfishness. Not worrying about it. My 5 pieces. We won! Good. Who's the we? Well, the we was a little limited there. Maybe the we was bigger. So the power of we and the magic of we was beyond that, and we needed something else. We needed unselfishness. Let me share 2 quick concepts with you before I hand it over to Selo. And I'm going to be brief about this, folks, so try to keep up, but also feel free to go and look up some of this stuff. When an author that wrote an anecdotal book that is spectacularly successful and quite profound, Patrick Lencioni, wrote about the 5 dysfunctions of teams. He wrote about a few things that he found is problematic to teamwork and collaboration. It starts up here at the top. The one dysfunction is the absence of trust. Trust starts occurring when what you say is okay with me, your contribution is fine with me. In fact, I appreciate that contribution. And so he says that the leadership role is to go first, to create spaces for contribution. But you know what's interesting what he says? He says that also means spaces for failures, spaces for mistakes. Now tell a leader, listen leader, what you need to do to really build your team is make a mistake and make it first. What you're really saying to them is be human. Acknowledge a mistake. Acknowledge that you are learning, because that's going to give opportunity for others to bring contributions from a place of potential insecurity. And that's the only way that you can build trust. Fear of conflict, not wanting to differ, not wanting to make debate, not wanting to look at different pieces and say, how do we bring them together? You say that, I say this. How do we get to the final outcome? Conflict is essential to teams. Lack of commitment. If you can't work through conflict, according to Patrick, to Lencioni, if you can't work through conflict, how can you expect commitment? You don't get it. You get compliance maybe, but not commitment. And again, on the 2 that I just mentioned, role of the leader, mindful conflict. In Sasol, we talk about debate maker. The lack of commitment, forced clarity and closure. In Sasol, we talk about goal clarity and alignment. The 4th dysfunction has to do with the avoidance of accountability, not wanting to stand up and be counted, not wanting to own up to the results or the lack thereof. And the leader must confront those difficult issues, especially that poor performance. But there's a contrary side to accountability, and that is the recognition or praise for good results. So those 2 counts, those 2 sides of the coin needs to be balanced. And lastly, inattention to results, which results just don't matter. And you get those teams where, we're together, we work, but do results really matter? Patrick Lencioni says that's a 5th dysfunction, and it really comes because of the combination of everything that's in there. How can you be serious about results? And so the role of the leader is to force collective outcomes. Last slide from me for now, and then I'm going to hand over to Selo. How do we bring the stuff that we've just spoken about into Sasol? we have a journey that we call our high performance culture journey. And we take that journey and that high performance culture idea and we weave it into every aspect of how we manage people in our organization. And we make it an integral part of our people and organizational effectiveness framework, which you'll see in a moment. But there's a few things, and you'll see the threads immediately. The idea of a common goal or a common game plan. Leaders that are inspiring, but we constantly nowadays talk about leaders that create trust. So that's quite a term, Sasol, that especially with our new CEOs, that we're hearing often when they engage. Leaders that are visible and create trusting working environments. Empowered accountability for individuals and teams. You see, collaboration is up there, but also the idea of results. What matters is the contribution and the outcome. But the only way we get to that is if we create conditions for collaboration. Stakeholder focus, again, the results idea. It's about the value creation for the stakeholder. Customers are always an important stakeholder, but there are others as well. And that gives us this idea of high performance. At that point, I'm going to ask Sasol to come and share with us within the organizational effectiveness model how we are trying to make this practical in Sasol. Can I just check, is everyone comfortable where you're sitting, or do you want to take a quick 30 seconds and rearrange in the room? Okay, take that 30 seconds. Sasol, just press the button. Just
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, we have to push on because of the time constraint that we have. As you know, we just got an hour, so we need to make sure that you get the maximum benefit out of the hour. So as Jacques, and thank you to Jacques, wasn't he brilliant? Yes. And did you enjoy that exercise? Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. So now I'm going to take you through, and I think that was one of the things with the Breakaway, to share with you how we are actually enabling collaboration and inclusion in Sasol. How have we incorporated this so that at the end of the day, we get the best out of all our individuals, teams, and the business at the end of the day. So I'm going to share a few practical examples for you of how we've done this. This we are very proud of. This is our people and organizational effectiveness landscape, or our framework that we use within Sasol. You will see clearly that culture, diversity and inclusion, and then obviously our employee value proposition are the fundamentals of how we enable talent, development, organizational effectiveness in Sasol. We say if we don't have this right, we cannot actually do any of the things in the segments that I'm going to take you through. So as Jacques pointed out earlier, the environment, the culture, the engagement of our people becomes key for us to achieve what we want to achieve from a Sasol strategic business priorities perspective. So it's really key for us. In terms of these segments that make up the framework, and I think from a talent perspective, you will be acquainted with some of these concepts. We have incorporated within each of the segments that I'm going to share with you the themes of collaboration, so teamwork and collaboration, and then of course diversity and inclusion. And we're going to share a few practical scenarios with you that are actually happening within the organization. They are not to be, they are happening. And obviously we're working on other things as well. So the first thing, or the first segment of our framework is in terms of how we acquire our talent. And you will be very acquainted with this in terms of the brand. So what's the employer brand? How do you attract people out there? How do you make people aware of your organization? And what we've done, quite key, in our people planning. So before you actually get people into the organization, you've got to plan for them. So in terms of how we plan for our people, we actually deliberately have the principles of inclusion and diversity included in there. Not just from the employment equity targets that we have. I know most company driving numbers. It's not about that. For us at Sasol, we want people that are different, that bring diversity in terms of their thinking, and that's going to add to the value in the organization. So there's a saying, I'm sure you've heard, the other day we talked about it, Stephen Covey. If we all think, or if two of us are in a room and we have the same opinion, one of us is redundant. Would you agree? So I think that is quite key for us in the way that we attract and that employer brand that's out there. So diversity of thinking, and obviously inclusion, making sure that people feel that their thinking, their ways of work, their ethic, their values are also included in terms of how we do things. So that's important for us. The other thing in terms of obviously retaining our talent within Sasol, we deliberately in our onboarding process. So I'm sure you all have gone through onboarding. You know, the induction and the onboarding process that the companies have. We deliberately in our onboarding and development programs. You know, Sasol, we're famous for our graduate development programs and learnerships. I'm very proud that's in our space. We have currently 600 graduates, bursars and graduates in the organization, and then we've got almost 1,000 learners. So I mean, what we have done is we've incorporated in that development program, as well as in the onboarding, the principles of collaboration and inclusion. So how they learn and how they develop there, it's also incorporated in that. We've tried to make that transition during the last 3 years, as I mentioned, more deliberate, so that the people, obviously you know we've got multi-generations in the workplace, and you can't have the same style that you had previously. You've got to adapt, and you've got to change, and you've got to make sure that you stay relevant. And if the younger generation are engaging differently, and collaboration is key for them, being heard and understood and being taken seriously for your contribution is becoming key. And we've thus had to transform. And I'm proud to say that that's working quite well. And then obviously, in terms of how the next bit is just to share with you that this is now a key portion of our summary in terms of our employer brand and employee value proposition. So the people within the organization as well, not just the new people, new hires, the people like us, the gray beards if you want to call us, or gray hair. This is key in terms of how we behave, how we value contributions from others. Diversity and inclusion and teamwork and collaboration are really important. Not just within the organization, but we work across a value chain. So we have stakeholders, external and internal. This is important to us to ensure that we are successful in business. So the communities in which we operate as well, from a corporate social investment perspective, it's important for us to enable those principles of inclusion and collaboration so that we get a successful result. Be it building a road in Mbalenhle, in Secunda, or building a community center, inclusion and collaboration is key. As well as then, if it is achieving success with our LCC project in Sasol North America. These principles are quite critical for us. And then of course, in terms of going forward, I'll talk about under the performance segment, how we reward our employees and how teamwork and collaboration plays a key there. The next thing I think this morning you also heard during the plenary session about development and how collaboration and teamwork and collaboration and inclusion have become critical. So you are all familiar with the concept of social networks or networks. Within Sasol, we've deliberately incorporated different methodologies to adjust and align to the learning styles of people. So that we do successfully within all our programs. I'm going to speak to one, which is this lovely picture here. That is our high potential program that we run in Sasol. It's called LEAP. It's the Learning, Experiencing, Accelerating Potential. These are the people we are developing who have the potential to become senior leaders in our organization. So the next generation of leaders. And we have people that we've identified on the program, And what we do is we create opportunities for them to network and engage with other senior leadership in the organization. They're young people. They've been identified, we're developing through this formal process where they get on-the-job learning experiences, as well as then we put them through a formal education program at INSEAD. But the on-the-job learning experiences is where you get maximum benefit. 90% of their time is spent on these different assignments within the organization in different roles, so that they can develop their general management, or what we call general management functional experience. They have technical competence. They need to get different buckets of experience to become better general managers or vice presidents. Very successful program. And the picture here is them engaging with our group executive. So young people in their 20s and 30s, they would be, I'm not sure your organizations, but it's very difficult to get the group executive of a company of 30,000 people in a room to engage with them 4 times a year. But we do it. We enable that. The other thing that we do, we have our vice presidents, and it actually hooks on to the next one as well there, the mentoring and coaching. We have our senior vice presidents and our group executive that are mentoring these individuals in mentorship networks. And I'm very proud to say as well that that is working excellently. So they provide both coaching. Coaching is specific. You want to achieve a goal. There's something you want to acquire, a skill or a competency, but mentorship also on the career side. And the senior vice presidents, and these are group executives though, that's our CEO, Bongani, one of our chief executive officers, Bongani Mkobwaba. And I think this is one of the good stories that we can share with you. Another is the LEAD Sasol program. I post a lot on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. And the LEAD Sasol program we actually put into place in 2015 so that we can help our leaders, the new leaders that are in the organization or they've been placed in their roles, with the skills and the competencies for them to be able to lead in this transformed organization. And the architecture of that program, I'm going to share it with you. Jack spoke to some of it already. The architecture of the program, a few fundamental principles is around leveraging diversity and inclusion and building collaborative partnerships with stakeholders internally and externally, so that you can achieve at the end of the day the business strategic imperatives. And the competencies within Sasol, those 2 things are also key competencies for us. We have 10 leadership competencies in Sasol, so those 2, diversity and inclusion, and obviously the collaborative partnerships with stakeholders or stakeholder engagement is key for us. The other thing that Jack spoke to as well is that our values, and we have critical behaviors that we've identified with indicators to actually indicate to us whether we are successful with what we do. So having values is one thing. Having critical indicators and behaviors to show whether you're successful is another thing, and that's what we put into place. This program, another example for you, is how we actually implement this and enable this, showing you teamwork and collaboration and diversity and inclusion. Next segment, I'm just going to check with Jar for time. Yeah, thanks. So we've also very successfully done this. This is 3 years ago when we updated, as I told you, our performance policy. So the performance policy has now incorporated this important aspect of teamwork and collaboration and diversity and inclusion. So every individual's performance plans, I'm going to show you example. Every individual's performance plan, this is on our Talent at Work system, Success Factors. We are using that technology platform. You have a key performance deliverable in terms of how are you enabling diversity and inclusion. As an individual, as a leader, as a team member, how are you enabling that? And like Jacques said, we work globally. So we look at it not just from a South African context. Diversity and inclusion extends far beyond that into the global context, because we've got North American, Eurasian, 24 countries that we need to deal with. And so how do we do that? And we get measured on this. So we're measured on this in our key performance deliverable. The other thing is, sorry for rushing, is the relationships, teamwork, and collaboration. This is a key result area as well for us on our performance plans. We are getting rated on it. We get merited on it, and thereafter, our reward, the reward, we have an individual performance factor. Each of us, we measured individually, then we measured in terms of how the team does, then in terms of your department, and then the Sasol group, or the business unit and Sasol group. We multiply that to get our short-term incentive calculation. So can you see, it's not a pie in the sky thing that we just talk, oh, we do diversity and inclusion and teamwork and collaboration. We get rated on this. We're getting rated on it from a performance perspective. And it is contributing to our merit rating and our short-term incentive and our increases. Very key.
Clarity still.
Yeah.
Those two results areas comes in conjunction to
The business results.
the business results.
Yes, that's the first result area. Sorry, I should have shown my own, the whole plan, but I was just looking at time. So we've got 3 results areas. It's the business results, obviously the leadership and growth, and then the teamwork and collaboration. So the all employees, we've sort of shortened it, all employees of Sasol, be it you the Chief Executive Officer, or you're a Cello Governor, a Jack Kruger, or you are operators in, in our plant environment in the US, you will be looked at in terms of this. All right, the last one that I'm going to speak to before I give back to Jack, because he's going to take us through the engagement and inclusion portion, is about how we actually enable teamwork and collaboration and diversity and inclusion in our career and succession and talent process. So there, one of the key principles for us from a career and succession perspective, especially with our high potentials and our senior leaders, that we are developing, we need to make sure that there's mobility of talent and that they are diverse talent. And the reason for that is we want fresh perspective, fresh insight in the different areas. And what we found is that we need to do a bit of musical chairs every now and again. Why? Why would you do musical chairs every year? Why would you move your leaders around?
They're exposed to different areas.
That's one way, one thing to get them exposed. But what else would it bring to that area if you move the leaders around? Sorry?
Prevents the industrial blindness.
Yes,
You're doing
yes.
the same thing and you're missing something.
Exactly.
It's a new pair of eyes.
Yes, so
You
the
put
new
it up.
leaders, and we've seen this, it's a deliberate thing on our part, it's actually a principle in our talent standard. We need to ensure mobility of our leadership so that we can bring the fresh insights and fresh perspective. It's not only at the leadership, it's actually at our specialist level as well. We are moving our talent around, we're moving them earlier, as opposed to, the previous, you must stay 20 years in the one role before you move. I myself stayed 11 years before I moved, but we don't do that anymore. We're trying to make people get the buckets, but also contribute, because when they come to that area with their different insights and perspectives, they're able to bring a valuable contribution. This is then our talent framework, and collaboration is actually enabled here by our leadership team, because what they do at a business level, they obviously are having their monthly people meetings that you are acquainted with. You discuss the order of the day HR practices, or the HR operational stuff. Annually we have our talent forums where the business or the functions will discuss the talent in the areas, who are the successes, who are the high potentials, what are the key roles and scarce skills, and do we have the right plans in place to address that. And this team here, and I think this is where the collaboration and the inclusion comes in, we've got a group of diverse leaders sitting in 3 integration forums globally. This one is very much focused on Southern African operations and the project environment and our business development environment. It has all our group executive and senior vice presidents discussing the talent here of about 26,000 people in that environment. And it's the senior lead all coming together to discuss how are we going to ensure that we've got the right talent in the right place at the right time, and to make sure that we've got our healthy pipeline of talent for the future. This is our International Operations Forum, also global leadership. And then of course we have the more commercial business marketing and sales forum, also a group of global leaders getting together. there is collaboration in determining who is going to go into the different roles as successors and who are those people that need to be developed and grown. It is not a inward focused, thing you do in a silo. And that is where we then get the maximum benefit from inclusion and collaboration in our talent processes. I'm now going to hand back to Jack to take us through the last segment. Hi.
Can I ask a question?
Can
Ask it quickly, and we may want to park it until the end.
Okay. Okay, 2 questions. How do you identify those talents? Do you identify them, or is everyone a talent?
No. We
Okay.
have a process.
Okay.
I'll share that with you.
Thank you. And then, what was the other one? Okay, now I forgot the other one. You put me put pressure on me.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
but yeah,
You'll think
I'll
about
ask
it.
again. Yeah.
But definitely we have a process and we have criteria to identify. Not everybody is a high potential. Yeah.
Okay, and then do you have like a Y model where it's you have your
Specials.
talent pipeline, specials,
And
managers?
generous. Yeah.
I would love to talk to you then.
No, that's fine. Sorry, Jack.
No, that's fine. The last segment of our model.
Sorry. Yeah, there's something.
Sorry, apologies. I just want to ask one last question, then you can answer at the end. It's very good and well, and it's quite nice what you've shared with us. The only question that I have is that what type of challenges do you experience in fostering inclusion in decision making, collaboration, teamwork? For one, you did mention that you've got what you call the gray hairs and the new ones, and typically with the culture of an organization, you find that you get splinters. So over and above the few that have been identified as talent and are a part of the programs that you've mentioned where you would foster that, what do you do for the rest of the 30,000 employees in your space?
Listen, folks, these questions are really interesting, and every one of them can take a couple of minutes. We're at the brink of our time contract with you guys. And so we just wanted to conclude this for you and see where we go. Maybe we steal a couple of minutes from tea time. Let me just bring this to a conclusion very briefly. The last segment over here has to do with transforming culture. Now, what's important about culture is a lot of culture work that we do, you don't only work on culture explicitly. We work on culture by working on all those other things. So our cultural DNA, or the high-performance culture that we want to create, we integrate into all those things. But there are some specific things we do. We do measure. We have a measuring process, an employee survey process called Sasol Heartbeat. We very deliberately build into other processes like Sasol Place, the building that we'll be moving into Sandton. The whole architecture, the whole working together in that building has been premised on creating a high-performance culture. And also we're very specific, is something that's not specifically over here, is at the moment we're looking at boosting recognition across the organization to build a culture of appreciation, that attitude of saying that this piece matters, but to take that further to say this piece matters because it conveys ABC in terms of where we're going, and building that culture is stuff that we're doing at the moment. But what is important is to understand that culture remains a journey. We're far from there. Just in our most recent heartbeat survey, and this is a very detailed slide with relation to everything we measure in terms of heartbeat, but just notice teamwork and collaboration there. When it comes to the 4 questions asked on teamwork and collaboration, only 2 in 3 people, even less, only 6 in 10 people, say that they agree to those statements. We've increased that since the previous time we did this measure, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. Your question, it's high when it comes to the senior leaders in the organization, and as we go down, the sense of teamwork and collaboration seems to be diminishing. We need to think about how we grow that. Now, I looked at it very briefly in terms of the feedback employees are giving us, and yes, the frank acknowledgement. When it comes to what makes Sasol great, and we only look at people saying stuff about teamwork, this is typically what's coming through. People love the team spirit, the global company, the teamwork, the common goal. Comments that you see is stuff like this. This was an interesting one. According to conventional wisdom, highly successful people have 3 things in common, and the person goes into a whole story, and then yet at the end he says, I'm blessed by opportunities at Sasol in that I have been able to converge on the sweet spots explained above. Talking about effectiveness, saying in Sasol I feel blessed. It's really good for me to be working with other people. Teamwork is on a league of its own, and help is readily available all the time. This is straight from the words from people. To be part of a global company, people sensing this. And the culture and the values in our organization allow us to work hand in hand as colleagues to help each other to get the work done and on time and to provide good customer service. But at the same time, there's a bunch of negative comments from people, and I'm not going to read all of that, but you'll see things like more teamwork and collaboration is necessary. We need to share knowledge. People talking about silos, and people saying that we still need to work together as one unit. And so we look at all this feedback and we critically ask, well, how do we across the organization get leaders and teams to make steady improvements in all of these areas? How do we remove the barriers? How do we identify those barriers? Etc., etc. And so we have a whole process of diagnose, discover, deliver that repeats over time. And we hope to empower leaders with information and the task and the accountability to work on this stuff. This is one of the processes that we drive. That brings us to a conclusion of that model. We are now, we're now 4 minutes over time. I would suggest that we maybe take a couple of comments and that we break within a minute, and that people feel free to come to us over lunchtime at the booth and come and engage more and come and ask more questions. So a couple of concluding comments. What do you walk away with? Who wants to share? Think about that for a moment. What do you walk away with?
It's very powerful because we have got a diverse society, not only inside of the organization, but also in the immediate surrounds, those affected stakeholders. And it's something that we didn't really look at in the past, or somebody else looked at it on behalf of us. And I'm from an operation, a mining operation, which kind of catches up with you later. And we're at that point now where we have to include.
I think it's great. You guys are doing excellent work. I think it is, however, a bit discouraging that one goes through all this hard work and then Exco and the shareholder decides to restructure Project Phoenix, and then everything goes down the drain. The talent that falls off, so it's great from a organizational development point of view to have these fantastic things in place, but you can only control that much. Where the shareholder tells you, okay, it's now time, or the consultancy tells you, okay, it's now time to restructure. And then you feel kind of, all this hard work of mine, and only the cream remains, and a lot of people fall off the wagon.
Because the team life cycle goes like this, right? You form, and then you need to move towards performance, and then you adjourn. And so today's world of work requires us to go through that life cycle very rapidly. You need to become part of a team and grow, mature, make a contribution.
And then it's obviously then you find the decline, and then you're going to start again in that process. That's a normal life cycle. And I think what the younger generation now, the millennials, are doing very well, they are able to adapt very easily. You'll find more senior people like ourselves, we might find it challenging, but the adaptability and that the energy that is now in the process requires you to think dynamically about it. I mean, you can, we used to say, or we say, we can put our heads down and start to look, despondent. But it's up to us. People look to us as the organization's leadership, as the organization's, you can call it cultural ambassadors, to enable the energy in the organization. So yes, there's going to be a new leader. In fact, we just had a change the day before, didn't we? We've had a change again. But it is how fast you are able to adapt. And you know what? There's something called honesty as well. Sometimes we must be honest with ourselves. There's times when you have to make the call in life as to whether you're going to stay or you're going to go. And that's a personal decision. And I think that's a difference.
Let's take the last comment and then we're going to break, folks.
So something I'll take away is the whole Ubuntu thing. So doing HR, and we've heard about it, but it never made any sense. But to think of it as a whole, it does take community for a person to exist. I mean, you can't just be Sasol as one person. It has to work as two.
That's great. Thanks for that. We're sneaking in a comment, but we have to let you guys go.
What I really enjoyed and what I learned was collaboration. Like as an engineering student, when you work within teams and you collaborate with other teams, it allows for consistency and safety. within a project to make sure that everybody agrees, because you get more input and more opinions, and that allows for better planning and designing, and that's really important.
So you like how that came out of the conversation today?
We've had real value in our project space, in our engineering space. I mean, the bulk of our organization is that ops and engineering, and there's so much of value in that. We see it in the business results. Yeah. Good.
Folks, go and grab a quick cup of coffee.
Enjoy.